All right, my name is Emma Palmer, and my presentation is on drug courts, and my audience member is my daughter. So 1 in 5 people incarcerated within the United States are incarcerated because of nonviolent drug offenses. That is a massive portion of the population. And out of these 1 in 5 people, when they get released, when they're done with their jail time, they have a recidivism rate of 68%. Recidivism is the rate of which people go back out into the world and then reoffend. So 68% of these people, once they go out into the world, within 3 years, they will be back in jail. So drug courts are an alternative way of punishment, as opposed to classical incarceration, just throwing people behind bars. With drug courts, when these people go through these events, that 68% drops by 8 to 26%. And this is according to the Department of Health and Welfare and research from Wilson McKenzie for the Journal of Experimental Criminology. So I'm about to graduate in 2 weeks from the Public Policy Administration program. What that is essentially making government work. We're the people behind the policies and the practices of government. And we are finding the most efficient way to have government work. So mass incarceration within the United States is one of the topics I've tackled. And a big portion, 1/5 of the prison population, is for nonviolent drug offenses. And these are people caught for pot, low-level MDAs, just you name it, it's there. And the key here is nonviolent. Those with a violent history, like obviously, should probably stay behind bars. But those that are nonviolent don't need to. So even though most Americans aren't directly related to the drug trade, Americans still feel this impact because they have to pay for the incarceration through their taxes. So drug courts need to become the standard of punishment for people with nonviolent drug offenses. They are much more effective, cost efficient, and they deal with the problem in a more holistic manner. And this is the most effective way to make government work. So today we're going to tackle 3 myths that people have with drug courts. First, that an addict just needs to detox and then they're fine. You can just throw them back in the real world and they'll be okay. Second, drug courts are less effective than traditional incarceration. And 3, drug courts are too expensive. So the first myth, the addicts only need to detox. There's this wide misunderstanding throughout the United States that addiction is just a choice. However, it is much more deeply connected to psychological issues. So it takes more than just going cold turkey to snap out of this. And that's according to the Journal of Experimental Criminology. For example, a large demographic of these drug addicted people are poor women who don't have husbands or boyfriends to help support them, and they have young children, and they're trying to make ends meet, and they have no formal education, and they often resort to prostitution or sex work. And this type of work often leads to really damaging psychological issues. And they often find ways to deal with this through self-medicating with drugs to help numb the pain, to make money, to support their children. And then it just begins this vicious cycle of needing more money for the drugs and then for their kids, and then just it keeps going round and round and round. So the problem is not just a physical one. As soon as you get the drugs out of your system, you're not cured. You still have that itch, you still have that need. Drugs make people have less of a will to live. It is deeply, deeply psychological. And the best way to combat this psychological issue is through a holistic, more whole way of doing things. And that's what drug courts offer. The second, so since we now have come to realize that this drug addiction problem isn't just a purely physical one, we can go on to the drug courts. And many people believe that they're less effective than traditional incarceration. People think that the best way to solve an issue, especially here within the United States, is to throw people in jail, have them sit on it for a few years, and then throw them back out. we saw through the recidivism rate in the beginning, 68% of people reoffend. So as we've discussed before, that this is a deeply psychological issue, and that's according to the National Institute on Drug Use. So drug courts are a way that they take the person and they diagnose why they're using drugs. And then through therapy and through other means, they address those issues. So through drug courts, studies have found that they drop from 8 to 26% in that recidivism rate. A lot of people might not think that's a lot, but when you can improve government by like say 1 to 2%, we get really excited. So having this up to a quarter of all people to have that go down is super impressive. And so it may not be a perfect solution, but it's our best solution. So now that we've gone through this, that it's the best solution, many people say drug courts are too expensive. For government to be effective, we have to make sure that it works with money-wise. So for example, look at school children. The best way to teach them is to have them in small classroom sizes. Well, for the past couple of years, classroom sizes have gotten bigger and bigger and bigger because it's just not cost effective to have that. But according to the Stanford University, through many studies, the state spends about $20,000 to $50,000 each year to keep a person incarcerated. That's just one person. On the flip side, look to drug courts, where it takes $2,500 to $4,000 annually per person to keep them in drug court. So we can see that if the state switched to this, they would save millions and millions and millions of dollars. So in conclusion, people often find, especially Americans, it's difficult to give people who have done a bad thing a second chance. It's not comfortable, and many Americans dislike it. However, we need to let go of this pride of punishing people and actually help the person, because obviously it doesn't work. We're wasting money every year by just throwing these people in jail and not dealing with their issues. Americans have the ability to help these people, to reach out a hand. It is the most effective way to deal with this issue, but again, it's just people's pride. So if we want to make the world a better place, we need to show mercy to some of the most vulnerable people in society, those addicted to drugs. Thank you.